Rain sliced through the city like shards of glass, soaking the pavement in a cold sheen as Clarissa Vale stepped out of her black Maybach, heels hitting the wet ground with a sharp, intentional rhythm. She didn't flinch when thunder cracked overhead. Power never did. And Clarissa Vale was power incarnate, billionaire, heiress, and the youngest CEO in the history of Vale International. She was made of steel and secrets, a woman who could ruin lives with a single press of her blood-red fingertip on a touchscreen. Which was exactly what made the bet so irresistible. Marry her for a month, break her heart, and make sure she never forgets it, Victoria said, laughing lazily from the penthouse bar, glass of Dom Perignon in hand. Clarissa didn't even blink. Just a month, she said, the corner of her mouth curling. That's easy. Because to Clarissa, women were a game. Feelings were leverage. And Ava Lowell was just another pawn. The girl was naive, soft-spoken, all sunshine and charity work, the kind that trusted too easily and forgave even faster. A perfect target. And besides, Clarissa had a point to prove. No one challenged her authority and got away with it, especially not Ava, who'd embarrassed her publicly by refusing a business grant from Vale Foundation on ethical grounds. It had made Clarissa look cold, inhuman, which, ironically, she was fine with until it made headlines. So now it was personal. She would seduce Ava, win her trust, marry her in a flash romance for the tabloids, and then destroy her in the most elegant, humiliating way possible. Just a month. Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow even more. And let me know in the comments, on a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story so far? Your feedback makes all the difference. She wouldn't feel a thing. At least, that's what she told herself. The first time Clarissa saw Ava again, she was in that god-awful bookstore on 9th and Lenox, the one that smelled like dust and dreams. Ava was there, curled up behind the register, a pen tucked between her lips, reading something with her brow furrowed and her knees drawn up like she was the softest thing in the universe. Clarissa's pulse stuttered. Annoyed, she shook it off. "Miss Lowell," she said smoothly, her voice like silk over a knife. Ava looked up, and those eyes.
Warm.
Open. Startled. "Miss Vale. I don't expect much either," Clarissa cut in, already stepping closer. "But I hear you've been talking about me. In public." Ava blinked, confused. "I just declined a donation." "That's not. Defamation comes in many forms." Clarissa leaned on the counter, close enough to smell vanilla and ink. "But I'm a generous woman. I'm willing to forget it ever happened." Ava narrowed her eyes slightly. "Why would you do that?" "Because I like a challenge." Clarissa's smile was predatory. "And you look like one." Ava stiffened. "I'm not for sale, Miss Vale." "Good," Clarissa said. "Because I don't buy. I take." The air between them shifted.
Sharp.
Electric. Clarissa didn't expect the heat. The way Ava's gaze didn't break. The way something flickered in those soft eyes. Not fear. Something else. Defiance. Clarissa walked out of the store with Ava's scent burned into her senses. And that night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering why the hell she suddenly couldn't stop thinking about a girl who smelled like paperback pages and stubbornness. 2 days later, Clarissa sent flowers to the bookstore. Then tickets to an opera. Then a dinner invitation handwritten on silk stationery. Ava rejected them all. Until the 4th envelope. "Have dinner with me," it said. Just dinner. No strings. No expectations. The handwriting was hers. Ava showed up in a pale yellow dress that made Clarissa forget how to breathe for a full 3 seconds. "This is a mistake," Ava said quietly as they sat across from each other, candles flickering between them. Clarissa smiled. "Probably." Ava held her gaze. "But I want to understand you." Clarissa raised an eyebrow. "That's your first mistake." And somehow, that was how it started. 1 dinner. Then 2. Then late-night texts and stolen glances. A slow, simmering seduction that Clarissa controlled with mechanical precision. Until the night Ava kissed her first. And something inside Clarissa cracked. Not that she'd admit it. Because this was still just a game.
A bet.
A performance. She would marry Ava in a lavish ceremony, just for show, and then destroy her in front of everyone. That was the plan. The problem was, Ava was making her forget why she ever wanted to win. The wedding was planned in 12 days. 12 days from Ava's tentative yes, whispered with trembling lips after Clarissa had spent weeks building something that looked like trust, or at least the illusion of it. Why so fast? Ava had asked, eyes wide, voice barely above a breath. Clarissa had cupped her cheek, thumb brushing against skin too soft for this world. Because I know what I want, she'd whispered, lying through her teeth. The truth was, she needed to move quickly before her resolve slipped. Before the heat between them got too dangerous. Before Ava saw through her. Before Clarissa stopped wanting to win. She hadn't expected the ceremony to shake her. But it did. There were violins and white roses, a rooftop garden overlooking the skyline, and 1,000 eyes watching as Clarissa slid the diamond ring onto Ava's finger with practiced grace. Ava wore a satin dress the color of cream, her hair twisted into something ethereal, and Clarissa, for one terrifying second, forgot where she was. Forgot everything. The bet, the plan, the cold satisfaction she'd promised herself. She just stared, jaw tight, as Ava smiled nervously and whispered, "I do." Clarissa said it too. It sounded hollow in her own ears, like someone else's voice. But the world cheered, and photographers snapped photos, and champagne flowed like water. Clarissa smiled for the cameras, kissed Ava's cheek, not her lips, not yet, and held her hand like a trophy.
And inside?
Inside, she felt something fray. That night, in the honeymoon suite of a luxury hotel Clarissa had bought just for the occasion, Ava sat on the edge of the massive bed, her shoes off, her dress still perfect, her hands in her lap. Clarissa poured herself a whiskey. No expectations, Ava said quietly, not looking at her. "Right." Clarissa turned slowly. "Right." Ava exhaled. "Then can I just sleep beside you tonight?" No pressure. Clarissa downed the drink in one motion. Of course. She wasn't sure which one of them she was lying to. The sheets were cool. Ava curled beside her, spine stiff with nerves, body radiating warmth. Clarissa kept her distance. Until Ava's fingers brushed hers in the dark. Until Ava whispered, "Why me?" And Clarissa, liar, strategist, manipulator, found herself staring at the ceiling, unable to answer. So she said the first thing that sounded real, "Because you make me forget how cold the world is." Ava didn't reply, but her fingers stayed tangled with Clarissa's until she fell asleep. Weeks passed. The tabloids exploded. Billionaire heiress marries local bookstore angel. From boardrooms to bedtime stories, Clarissa Vale's sudden wedding shocks everyone. Clarissa's enemies whispered that she'd gone soft. Her board demanded explanations. Her fake marriage was front-page news. But Clarissa? She couldn't focus on any of it. Because Ava was changing everything. Mornings started with coffee and soft laughter. Evenings ended with Ava reading aloud from her favorite books, her head resting on Clarissa's shoulder. Clarissa never meant to get used to it. But she did. Too fast. Too deep. And the guilt started to rot her from the inside. Ava trusted her. Believed every soft look, every accidental smile. Every night Clarissa didn't touch her, didn't take what was expected, Ava looked at her with even more tenderness, more hope. It killed her. She started avoiding mirrors. Because every time she looked, she saw a monster with perfect lipstick. Then came the first real crack. A press event. Ava was supposed to stay home. That was the rule. Clarissa's world was sharp edges and cold games. But Ava showed up anyway, uninvited. She wore a black dress and stood beside Clarissa like she belonged. Like she was proud. Clarissa's ex, a socialite with venom in her smile, leaned in and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "You still collecting strays, Vale?" Ava froze. Clarissa's jaw locked. The moment hung, fragile and cruel. And then Ava, gentle, golden-hearted Ava, turned to the woman and said, with calm fire, "She's not collecting. She's learning how to deserve better." Silence. Clarissa stared at her, stunned. No one had ever defended her like that. Not once. Not ever. Back in the limo, Clarissa couldn't stop looking at her. Ava stared out the window, calm, unreadable. You didn't have to do that, Clarissa said. Ava's voice was quiet. I did.
Why?
Because maybe you don't see it, Clarissa, she said, turning to face her. But you're not who they say you are. Clarissa swallowed hard. You don't know me. Then let me. Clarissa wanted to kiss her, wanted to run, wanted to scream. Instead, she said, okay. That night, they didn't sleep on opposite sides of the bed. That night, Clarissa kissed her.
Gently, slowly.
As if Ava might break. Ava didn't. She kissed her back like she was choosing her. And when they fell asleep, tangled and breathless, Clarissa knew something awful. Something irreversible. She was falling. And the end of this bet would ruin them both. Clarissa Vale was not a woman who made mistakes. She built empires from nothing, silenced rivals with a look, and walked through the world like it owed her reverence. But this thing with Ava, it was beginning to feel less like a mistake and more like a slow, exquisite unraveling. Each morning now came with a question she didn't know how to answer. How had a lie started to feel so much like truth? Ava moved through their penthouse like she belonged, barefoot and humming, leaving little trails of soft chaos. A coffee cup half-finished on the counter, a sweater draped over the back of a chair, a book abandoned on the edge of the bathtub. Clarissa hated disorder. But somehow, Ava's presence didn't feel like a mess. It felt like warmth, like home, which terrified her. Because Clarissa was still hiding everything.
The bet.
The reason she started this. The countdown she didn't know how to stop. And every time Ava looked at her with those wide, trusting eyes, Clarissa felt the noose tightening. The first real fracture came one Friday morning. Ava was at the breakfast table, legs tucked underneath her, hair still messy from sleep, flipping through a poetry book while Clarissa scanned business reports. Can I ask you something? Ava said, not looking up. Of course. Why did you really marry me? Clarissa's hand stilled. Her pulse ticked once, sharply. I already told you. I wanted to. You barely knew me. Ava finally met her gaze. People like you don't do things like that without a reason. Clarissa's smile was tight. Maybe you're the exception. Ava studied her, silent. I want to believe that, she said. I really do. Then she stood up and walked away, leaving Clarissa breathless. That night, Clarissa didn't sleep. She kept hearing Ava's voice in her head, over and over. I want to believe that. And the guilt, the ice-cold, heavy kind, wrapped around her chest like a vice. The next day, she canceled 3 meetings and followed Ava to the bookstore. It was a Saturday, and the place was buzzing softly with regulars. Clarissa stood in the doorway, watching Ava laugh with a little girl in pigtails kneeling beside her to help find a fairy tale. It was disarming, painful,
pure.
Ava finally noticed her and smiled. The real kind, the kind Clarissa didn't deserve. What are you doing here? I wanted to see you, Clarissa said. Is that allowed? Of course it is. Ava's eyes softened. You just never come here. Maybe I should, Clarissa murmured. You look happy here. I am. Ava tilted her head. But I'm happier with you. That shouldn't have hurt. But it did. Because Clarissa wasn't supposed to be her happiness. She was supposed to be the storm that ruined her. She reached out, brushing Ava's cheek with the back of her fingers. Let me take you away tonight. Somewhere quiet. Just us. Ava hesitated, then nodded. Okay. They drove upstate, to a cabin Clarissa owned but never used. It was buried in pine trees and silence, with no cell reception and no staff. Just them. Ava stepped inside and let out a soft gasp. This place is beautiful. Clarissa watched her move, touching things gently, reverently, like she was afraid to break the moment. Over dinner, they talked about nothing and everything. Clarissa let Ava see pieces of her that no one else ever had. Her childhood, her loneliness, her fear of becoming the monster everyone already believed she was. Ava listened. No judgment. No pity. Just presence. Later, by the fireplace, Ava curled up beside her, head on her shoulder. I never thought I'd fall in love like this, she whispered. Clarissa froze.
What?
Ava looked up, eyes luminous. With you. I think I'm falling for you. The words hit like a knife between the ribs. Clarissa swallowed hard. Ava, you don't have to say it back, Ava said quickly, almost embarrassed. I just wanted you to know. Clarissa couldn't breathe. She couldn't speak. Because she wanted to say it back. God, she wanted to. But she knew the second she did, the truth would start bleeding out. So instead, she kissed Ava.
Soft.
Desperate. Like maybe she could bury the guilt under want. That night, they made love for the first time. No games. No distance. Just skin and breath and the raw ache of something real. Clarissa held her afterwards, Ava's head resting over her heart. And for the first time in her life, Clarissa wished she weren't who she was. Wished she'd never made that damn bet. Because now, she was in too deep. And Ava? Ava was falling for someone who didn't exist. The next morning, Clarissa found Ava outside, standing barefoot on the grass, staring out at the trees. You okay? Clarissa asked. Ava didn't turn around. I need to ask you something again. Clarissa's stomach tightened. Okay. If I asked you to walk away from everything, your empire, your money, your company, would you do it? Clarissa laughed, more out of nerves than humor. What kind of question is that? Ava turned to face her, and for the first time, there was no softness in her eyes. Just steel. A real one. Clarissa stared at her. What are you trying to say? Ava's voice was quiet. I think I know what this is. What is? This marriage.
You. Me.
Why you chose me. Clarissa's mouth went dry. Ava stepped closer. I think I know. I just want to hear you say it. Clarissa Vale had never frozen in front of a confrontation. Not once. Not with ruthless CEOs. Not with shareholders. Not even when federal investigations hovered like vultures over her company during a hostile takeover. But standing there, barefoot in the grass with the morning sun brushing over Ava's skin like the world itself loved her, she couldn't move.
Couldn't speak.
Say what? She asked, low and careful, like she could still steer the moment away from the cliff it was heading toward. Ava's eyes didn't flinch. The truth. Clarissa swallowed. You're going to have to be more specific. Ava took a slow step forward. Did you marry me because of a bet? Silence dropped like a bomb. Clarissa's pulse slammed into her throat. Her mouth opened, then shut. She felt her face shift, a micro-expression she couldn't control. And Ava saw it. She saw it. Her entire body changed, like something inside her had snapped into place. I knew it, Ava whispered. It wasn't anger in her voice. It was heartbreak. Worse. How long? She asked, voice trembling but steady. From the start. Clarissa said nothing. Ava's breath hitched. She blinked fast, like her tears were begging to fall, but she refused to give them that satisfaction. So what, Clarissa? You picked me out like some charity case? You pretended to fall for me just to win a stupid game. Clarissa finally found her voice. Too late, too broken. It wasn't, Ava. It didn't stay like that. I didn't mean, don't, Ava said sharply, voice rising. Don't you dare twist this. You lied to me. You let me fall for you. You let me touch you. Sleep next to you. Trust you. Her voice cracked on the last word, and Clarissa stepped forward instinctively. Ava, don't. Ava stepped back. Did you ever plan to tell me? Clarissa's silence was louder than any answer. I see, Ava said, voice hollow. So this is the part where I'm supposed to be humiliated, right? Where you get to tell your friends you broke me? No, Clarissa whispered, shaking her head. God, no. It stopped being about them a long time ago. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. Ava's voice was ice now. Every word, every kiss, every time you held me, it was all calculated, wasn't it? No, Clarissa took a step forward. Not after the first night. Not after I really saw you. Then why didn't you stop? Because I didn't know how. Clarissa's voice cracked open, rage and desperation pouring through the gap. Because I started wanting you and hating myself at the same time. Because every day I got closer and didn't know how to undo it. Because I fell for you too, Ava. And by the time I realized what I'd done, it was already too late. Ava stared at her, stunned. You don't get to say that. It's the truth. No, Clarissa. It's convenient. Her hands were shaking now. I don't know what hurts more, the betrayal or the fact that I believed in you. Clarissa stepped closer again, pleading in her voice now. Ava, please. I will fix this. I'll do anything. I'll go public. I'll tell them all the truth. You'll what? Undo the wedding? Erase the nights I spent thinking this was real? Fix my heart like it's a press release you can spin. I love you, Clarissa said, voice breaking for the first time in years. You don't. Ava's voice was so quiet it burned. You love the version of me you could control. The one you thought wouldn't find out. The one who existed in your game. Clarissa's hands were trembling now. That's not true. Then prove it. Ava crossed her arms. Tell the world the truth. Step down from Vale International. Give up the empire that made you this woman. Start over, for real. With me. The words hit like a whip. Clarissa felt her soul recoil. You're asking me to destroy everything I've built. I'm asking you to be someone worth loving. Clarissa said nothing. Her silence was the answer. Ava's eyes shone now, but she didn't cry. You can keep your empire, she said, voice like frost. I'm done being part of the foundation it's built on. She turned and walked into the cabin. Clarissa stood there, frozen in the quiet, as the door closed behind her. That night, Ava was gone. No note. No call. Just the echo of her absence stretching through the empty rooms. Clarissa tore through the cabin, through her own thoughts, through everything she'd ever told herself about control and power and strategy. None of it mattered. She'd had love, raw, real, breathtaking love, and she destroyed it because she was too afraid to let herself be known. Too afraid to give it a name. And now, she didn't know how to get Ava back. She just knew she had to. Because the only thing worse than losing was living without her. And Clarissa Vale had finally lost something she couldn't buy back. Clarissa Vale didn't go back to the city. Not immediately. She stayed in the cabin for 3 days, surrounded by silence and memory. Every corner held echoes of Ava, her laugh in the kitchen, her warmth in the sheets, her voice saying, I think I'm falling for you. Clarissa couldn't erase it, couldn't escape it. She barely ate, didn't sleep. For the first time in her life, the world didn't revolve around her power, her money, her control. For the first time, she felt utterly powerless. And she deserved it. On the 4th morning, she drove back to New York, eyes bloodshot, jaw tight, heart dragging behind her like a corpse. The city hadn't changed. Her office still stood like a monument to everything she'd built, glass and steel and fear. But Clarissa didn't go to work. She didn't call her assistant, didn't check the headlines. She went home, alone. The penthouse felt cold now, sterile, like a mausoleum to the life she ruined. Ava's things were gone. Her books, her sweaters, the mismatched mugs she brought from the bookstore. All of it vanished. The only thing left was her scent. And Clarissa stood in the center of the room, breathing it in like punishment. Then she did the one thing she never thought she would. She opened her private vault. Inside were files, contracts, acquisitions, non-disclosure agreements, and at the very bottom, a single red envelope. The original terms of the bet. A marriage. A public humiliation. A win. She stared at it. For a long time. Then she lit it on fire. Watched it burn in the kitchen sink until the ash swirled like dust from a former life. That same night, she called a press conference. Her board tried to stop her. Her lawyers begged her not to speak. There's no reason to throw everything away over a scandal that hasn't even hit yet, they said. It's already hit, Clarissa answered. You just haven't felt the impact. The press room was full. Cameras. Lights. Whispers. Clarissa stood at the podium in a black suit, no jewelry, no makeup, just her raw, sleepless face. She didn't read a statement, didn't deflect. She looked directly into the flashing lights and said, "I married Ava Lowell under false pretenses. It was a manipulation.
A bet.
I did it to hurt her." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "But I fell in love with her," Clarissa continued, voice unwavering. "And by the time I realized what I'd done, it was too late. So this is not damage control. It's confession. And I'm stepping down as CEO of Vale International effective immediately." Shouts exploded from the back. Reporters stood, waving microphones. "Why now? Is she suing you? Are you being blackmailed?" Clarissa raised a hand. "I'm doing this because it's the only thing left I can do right. Ava didn't deserve what I did. She deserves the truth. And if there's any chance she's watching, I want her to know." She paused, emotion slicing through her throat. "I am not asking for forgiveness. I just want her to know I'm not hiding anymore." She walked off the stage, left the building, left everything. But Ava didn't call, didn't come. Days passed. Clarissa waited, like a penitent sinner outside a locked chapel. She didn't try to find her. She didn't beg. She knew Ava would come to her, if she ever wanted to. She just didn't expect what came instead. A letter. No return address. No signature. But she knew the handwriting. "You don't get to fix this with a headline. You don't get to say sorry in front of cameras and expect everything to change. But I saw your eyes. I saw your face. And part of me still wants to believe you meant it. So here's your chance. Prove you're not the woman who made that bet. Prove it in silence. Prove it when no one is watching." Clarissa folded the letter with shaking hands. It smelled faintly like paper and rain. And for the first time in weeks, her heart beat with something close to hope. She didn't know where Ava was. But she knew what she had to do. She sold her penthouse, donated the profits to the community literacy program Ava once mentioned. She dissolved 2 of her most controversial subsidiaries, companies that exploited labor overseas, ones Ava had criticized before. She disappeared from the tabloids, from social media, from the world. And every day, she woke up in a small 1-bedroom apartment in the East Village with no staff, no luxury, no empire. Just a journal. And Ava's letter. She didn't chase. She didn't beg. She became the kind of woman who could be worth loving. Quietly. Consistently. Alone. And somewhere in the city, Ava Lowell watched. Heard. Waited. Clarissa Vale had never lived like this. The floor of the apartment creaked. The radiator clanked like an old man coughing. The walls were thin, and she could hear her upstairs neighbor singing badly to Whitney Houston every morning. There was no driver. No private chef. No staff pressing her clothes or arranging her schedule. She did her own laundry. Burned her own toast. And she still woke up every day with Ava's letter beside her bed, folded into perfect thirds, the crease soft from being opened too many times. Prove it in silence. Those words haunted her, grounded her, guided her. She didn't try to find Ava. She didn't go near the bookstore. But some mornings, she walked past it on the other side of the street, her hood up, hands deep in her pockets. Just to feel close. Just to look through the windows and see if Ava was there. Sometimes she was. Sometimes not. On the days she wasn't, Clarissa's chest ached like something was missing in her ribs. On the days she was, Clarissa would stop for exactly 10 seconds. Count them slowly. Then keep walking. Because this wasn't about chasing. This was about changing. Months passed. Winter crept in. The world moved on from the scandal. Another celebrity broke the internet. Another politician lied. People forgot. But Clarissa didn't. Her mornings started with cold coffee and job applications. No one wanted to hire her. Not the real her. The version stripped of power, of reputation. But she kept trying. Eventually, she got a part-time gig at a nonprofit Ava once mentioned. Literacy programs for underserved youth. She filed papers. Made copies. Picked up lunch orders for interns 10 years younger than her. And every time someone said, "You look like that billionaire woman," she smiled and said, "I used to." The pay was minimum wage. The reward was something she didn't have a name for yet. It was during one of the book drives, in a community center in Brooklyn, that it happened. She was unpacking boxes of worn-out children's books, hair tied back, no makeup, sleeves rolled to her elbows. And then, a familiar voice behind her. You never belonged in penthouses. Her hands froze. The sound hit her spine like lightning. She turned slowly. Ava stood near the door, arms crossed, face unreadable. Clarissa's throat closed. Ava, you belonged here, Ava said quietly. With people. With purpose. Clarissa didn't move. Didn't breathe. You've been watching? She asked, voice low. Ava nodded. I didn't want to. I tried not to. But people talk. I heard about what you did. What you gave up. Clarissa looked down at her hands. It doesn't undo what I did to you. No, Ava said. But it shows me you meant it. Clarissa stepped forward, slowly. Why are you here? Ava hesitated. Because I don't know if I'm ready to forgive you. Clarissa nodded. I understand. But I needed to see you. With my own eyes. And Ava's gaze softened, just slightly. You look smaller. Clarissa blinked. Smaller? Not physically. Just less untouchable. Less armored. That's probably because I haven't slept in weeks. Ava smiled.
Barely.
You used to be terrifying. I still am. No, Ava said. You're human now. Clarissa's voice cracked. You make me want to be. Silence stretched between them.
Raw.
Electric. Then Ava walked closer. Stopped just a few feet away. I'm not here to fix you, Clarissa. I know. And I'm not here to fall back into something toxic. I don't want that anymore. I don't know what I want, Ava admitted. But I miss you. The words slammed into Clarissa's chest. I miss you too, she whispered. Ava looked down. I think about that cabin. That night. The way you looked at me like you couldn't believe I was real. Clarissa stepped closer. You were the only real thing in my life. Their eyes locked. And for a moment, the world stopped. Ava reached into her bag. Pulled out a book. An old, battered copy of Jane Eyre. You left this at the penthouse. Clarissa took it with trembling hands. I read it 3 times since you left. Did it end differently? No, Clarissa said. But I understood it better. Ava nodded. Maybe we'll understand us better too. And then she turned, walked away again. But this time she looked back. Just once. And Clarissa knew. The wall was cracking. The door wasn't open. But it wasn't locked anymore. The door wasn't locked anymore. But it wasn't open either. And Clarissa Vale knew that if she barged through it, Ava would close it again for good. So she waited.
Carefully.
Respectfully. Painfully. She went to work. She stocked bookshelves. She sat in quiet subway cars instead of backseats of luxury sedans. She paid bills late sometimes. Bought groceries with exact change. It was humbling. Grounding. Necessary. She didn't run into Ava again for almost 3 weeks. Then one Friday afternoon, she found a paper bag on the front steps of her building. Inside, a sandwich from her favorite cafe, a thermos of jasmine tea, and a single note. You forgot lunch again. I asked around. Clarissa sat down on the concrete, heart thudding like it was trying to claw its way out of her chest. She read the note 10 times. Memorized the curve of Ava's handwriting. The fact that it was signed with just A. The tiniest olive branch. The next day, Clarissa returned the gesture. She left a used copy of the bell jar outside the bookstore with a note tucked between pages 112 and 113. Don't forget to eat. You forget when you're sad. No signature. No expectation. Just one moment. Then another. A week later, she opened her mailbox to find a folded newspaper article, an interview Ava gave to a small literary blog. Someone had circled her quote in red ink. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about deciding that someone's growth matters more than your pain. Clarissa touched the paper like it might burn her. Her chest ached in a way that didn't feel like punishment anymore. It felt like longing. Please, she wrote on a scrap of paper, the the next time she passed the bookstore, let me prove I can give you something without taking anything from you. She left it tucked behind the gardenia plant outside the shop. The next day, there was a sticky note on the gardenia's pot. Tuesday, 7 p.m., the library on Eldridge. Don't be late. Clarissa arrived at 6:45, heart hammering. It was a tiny public library, almost forgotten by the city, with peeling walls and flickering lights. Ava was already there, seated in a corner, flipping through a poetry collection. She looked up as Clarissa approached, her expression unreadable. Clarissa sat across from her without a word. For a while, they just read in silence. Pages turned, clocks ticked, and then Ava spoke, softly. You're the only person who ever made me question whether love was safe. Clarissa looked at her hands. I don't expect you to feel safe with me. I just want to give you the chance to walk away whenever you need to. Ava closed the book. I don't want to walk away. I want not need to. Clarissa met her gaze. Then let me show you I can be someone who doesn't hurt you. Show me how. By staying. By not asking for anything. By being there when you look and silent when you don't. Ava leaned back, watching her. You know, it wasn't just the lie that broke me. What was it? It was the way you looked at me like I was yours. Like I mattered. Like I was, she hesitated, special. You were. But not enough to stop. Clarissa's voice cracked. I know. And I will regret that for the rest of my life. Ava looked away. I don't need you to grovel. I'm not, Clarissa said. I'm grieving. For what I ruined. Ava nodded slowly. I can't promise anything. I'm not asking for a promise. Just a little more of your time. A long silence passed. The kind that said everything two hearts couldn't yet say aloud. Then Ava slid a folded piece of paper across the table. Clarissa opened it. It was a schedule. Volunteer reading sessions at the library. Tuesday nights. We could use a second reader, Ava said. The kids love stories. But they don't get a lot of happy endings. Clarissa swallowed hard. I'm good at reading aloud. Not too good, Ava said, a flicker of teasing in her voice. Don't make me look bad. It was small. It was nothing. But to Clarissa, it was everything. That night, Clarissa didn't go home right away. She walked through the city with a paper in her coat pocket, clutched like a prayer. At a red light, she caught her reflection in a storefront window. She almost didn't recognize herself. Her edges were softer. Her eyes less hollow. The cold around her had started to melt. Not because she'd won anything, but because she'd stopped trying to. The next Tuesday, she showed up 15 minutes early. Ava was already there. Clarissa sat beside her on the rug as children trickled in, wide-eyed and full of energy. Ava started the session with a picture book, reading with gentle inflection. The kids were mesmerized. Clarissa took over halfway through.
Her voice steady, warm.
The children laughed.
Leaned in.
Ava watched her, quiet. After the session, as they cleaned up crayon wrappers and stacked books, Ava spoke without looking at her. You're good with them. They're honest, Clarissa said. They know when you're lying. Ava smiled faintly.
Yeah.
They do. Clarissa reached for the last crumpled page and froze. It was a drawing. A childish, messy sketch of two women holding hands under a rainbow. One wore a crown. The other had a book. Ava glanced at it. Then at Clarissa. Their eyes met. And this time, neither of them looked away. It was never about grand gestures now. Not anymore. The rhythm between them had shifted into something softer, smaller, like the slow, careful stitching of a wound that had once bled too freely. Clarissa didn't expect to be invited into Ava's life. She accepted crumbs, quiet Tuesday nights reading to children, brief conversations between stacks of books, the rare glance that lingered too long before one of them looked away. But those moments began to accumulate.
Slowly.
Secretly. Intimately. One Thursday afternoon, Clarissa found a voicemail on her phone. Ava's voice, soft and almost unsure. I'm staying late at the shop tonight. Inventory stuff. There's leftover soup if you want some. I mean, you don't have to. Just if you're cold. She replayed the message 6 times before replying. I'm always cold. I'll be there. That night, the bookstore was dim, lit only by a few scattered lamps. Ava sat cross-legged on the floor behind the counter, boxes of books open around her, sleeves pushed up to her elbows. Clarissa stood in the doorway, heart thudding, until Ava looked up. You came, she said. Clarissa stepped inside, closed the door behind her. You offered soup. I'm not a monster. Ava arched an eyebrow. That's debatable. Clarissa smiled, tentative. Ava pointed to a thermos and a chipped ceramic bowl on the counter. Don't say, I never give you anything. Clarissa sat, poured, tasted. It was good. Too good. You're trying to poison me with affection. Ava's expression shifted. Not quite a smile, not quite a warning. It wouldn't take much. Silence stretched between them.
Safe. Heavy.
Clarissa glanced around at the chaos of open boxes. You need help. Ava shrugged. I've got a system, but I wouldn't say no to company. So they worked together. Clarissa sorted books by genre while Ava labeled them, their hands occasionally brushing, their eyes meeting in moments that made the air grow thick with unspoken things. At one point, Clarissa pulled out a worn-out romance novel with a ripped cover and held it up. You still stock this one? Ava glanced at it. It's cheesy, predictable, full of cliches. Then she took it from Clarissa's hand.
But yeah.
People love it. Happy endings are a rare kind of hope. Clarissa studied her. Do you believe in them? Ava's voice dropped. I didn't. Not for a while. Clarissa swallowed. Because of me. Ava nodded. You didn't just lie to me. You rewrote me. You turned me into a prop in someone else's game. Clarissa's throat tightened. I hate that I ever made you feel small. You didn't make me feel small, Ava said, eyes piercing. You made me feel like I wasn't real. Like everything I was, my choices, my boundaries, my heart, was just background noise for your story. Clarissa stepped closer. I see you now. You should have seen me then. I know. Clarissa's voice cracked. I look at you, and I see the girl who held my hand in bed and didn't ask me to give anything I wasn't ready to. The girl who defended me at a party where everyone hated me. The girl who made me want to be someone better, and I crushed her. Ava was quiet for a long time. She's still here, she whispered. But she's different now. Stronger. Angrier. Smarter. Clarissa nodded. She deserves everything. Ava looked up at her. What about you? What do you think you deserve? Not you, Clarissa said instantly. Not after what I did. Then why are you still trying? Because I want you anyway. Even if I never deserve you. Even if I never get to kiss you again. Even if I only get your silence or your friendship or nothing at all. I still want to spend my whole life proving I'm no longer the woman who married you for a lie. Ava stared at her. Then, slowly, she stood. Clarissa stood too. They were close now. Close enough to feel the heat. The ache. The history. Ava reached up, gently, and touched Clarissa's face, brushing her thumb across the hollow beneath her eye. You look tired, she murmured. Clarissa closed her eyes. I haven't slept since the day you walked out. Ava exhaled. I haven't breathed right since that day. Clarissa opened her eyes. Then maybe we're still broken in the same places. Ava's touch lingered. Her fingers slid into Clarissa's hair, slow, hesitant, almost trembling. If I kiss you now, she said, it won't be forgiveness. I don't want forgiveness. It won't be a promise either. Then what? Clarissa whispered. Ava leaned in, her lips just a breath away. It'll just be now. Clarissa didn't move. Didn't speak. She let Ava close the last inch. Let her kiss her. Soft. Careful. Like they were testing the shape of something that could never be rushed again. It wasn't fire. It wasn't lust. It was something deeper. Something broken and rebuilding at the same time. When they pulled apart, Ava didn't let go. Her forehead pressed to Clarissa's. Stay, she whispered. Just for tonight. Always, Clarissa breathed. But Ava shook her head. No promises. Not yet. Just stay. Clarissa nodded. And she did. Morning crept in gently, casting amber light across the creaky floorboards of the bookstore, where Clarissa Vale lay still beside the woman she once broke and was now learning, slowly, painfully, how to hold again without damage. Ava hadn't said much after the kiss. She hadn't needed to. Her fingers had laced into Clarissa's in the quiet hours after, anchoring them both in the fragile piece of a moment that didn't pretend to fix the past, but dared to believe in the possibility of something new. Clarissa hadn't slept like that in months, her heartbeat not racing with shame or regret, but wrapped around the soft rhythm of Ava's breath. But the sun brought questions. And questions, Clarissa knew, rarely left without blood. Ava stirred beside her, hair a tangled halo, eyes blinking against the light. "Did you stay all night?" she murmured. Clarissa nodded. "You told me to." Ava turned slowly to face her. "I told you to stay for tonight. Not every night." The teasing in her voice was faint, but present. Clarissa smiled, barely. "I'm learning boundaries. Slowly."
Good.
"Because I'm not rushing this. I'm not ready to rewrite us yet." "I don't want to rewrite us," Clarissa said, brushing a piece of hair from Ava's cheek. "I want to start from the blank page. The part where the ink hasn't bled yet." Ava looked at her. "Long, deep. Then don't make the same mistakes again." "I won't," Clarissa said. But Ava's expression faltered. "Even now," she whispered, "some part of me still waits for the other shoe to drop." That landed hard. Clarissa sat up slowly, the ache sharp in her chest. "I don't want you to live in fear of me." "It's not fear," Ava said quietly. "It's memory. Muscle memory. Like touching a scar you forgot you had, until someone presses too hard." Clarissa lowered her gaze. "You're allowed to hesitate. I'm trying to move past it, but it's not easy. You hurt me in ways I didn't know I could be hurt." "Then I'll take the time," Clarissa said. "Whatever you need. No pressure. No expectations. Just space to heal together." Ava nodded, but didn't speak again. And Clarissa knew that healing wouldn't come quickly. That was the thing about damage. It never left you the same. It only taught you to carry yourself differently. But the world had never let Clarissa carry anything without trying to strip it from her. Especially not her past. Especially not Victoria Lang. It happened the following Friday. Clarissa was leaving the library after her weekly reading session when she saw the familiar figure leaning against a black car, sunglasses perched high, red lips curled in a smirk like a blade. "You've gone domestic," Victoria said. "Adorable." Clarissa stiffened. "What do you want?" "You, obviously. Or at least, the version of you that wasn't a walking redemption arc. She doesn't exist anymore." "Oh, honey." Victoria took off her sunglasses. Her eyes were sharp. "She never existed. But you played her well. And now you're throwing it all away for a girl who used to cry over dog-eared poetry books. Don't talk about her." "Oh, I will. Because she ruined you. You were cold. Calculated. Perfect. Now look at you, working with children, sleeping in bookstores, drinking cheap coffee like you've got nothing to lose." "I don't have anything to lose," Clarissa said calmly. "Because I already lost everything. And for the first time, it taught me what I actually want. Which is not you." The silence was brutal. Victoria's smile cracked just a little. "I gave you that bet, Clarissa. I handed you the match you used to burn her down. Don't act like you're some victim of circumstance. You were built for this." Clarissa stepped closer, her voice low and razor-sharp. "You're right. I took the match. I struck it. And I watched it burn. But now I'm rebuilding. Not for you. Not for anyone else's amusement. For her. For me. Because I want to live without the taste of ash in my mouth every day." "So what now?" Victoria said, mockingly. "You're going to write her poetry and plant trees and beg for scraps of forgiveness?" "No," Clarissa said. "I'm going to earn her. Quietly. Honestly. And if she never chooses me again, I'll still be better than I was when I was yours." Victoria's face darkened. "You think she'll forgive you just because you play humble?" "She already kissed me," Clarissa said. "That wasn't forgiveness. That was hope. And you've never known the difference." She turned and walked away, heart pounding, hands shaking, not with fear but release. Ava was worth all of it. Every humiliation. Every piece of herself she had to tear down and rebuild. But Victoria, she wasn't finished. That night, Clarissa received an anonymous email. No words. Just attachments. Photos. Screenshots. Evidence. The original terms of the bet. The party where it was made. Her own voice on audio, laughing. She's so soft. I could marry her in a week and have her crying by the end of the month. Clarissa's blood ran cold. The email had no threat. No demand. Just proof. Enough to destroy everything. Enough to ruin Ava all over again. The next day, she walked into the bookstore, the printed photos clutched in a trembling hand. Ava was behind the counter, hair in a loose braid, humming softly to herself. She looked up and smiled, until she saw Clarissa's face. What happened? Clarissa laid the pages on the counter. These exist, she said quietly. Ava looked down. Her face paled. She flipped through the images, her hands steady, her eyes not. She recognized the voices. The laughter. The truth. Again. Clarissa watched her unravel in silence. Watched her fight to hold her composure. Is this what you were afraid of? Ava asked. That someone else would break it for us? Clarissa nodded.
Yes.
And I know what you're thinking. That I should have told you. That I should have burned these before anyone else could. But I couldn't. Not this time. Not again. Ava folded the pages, placed them gently aside, then looked up. Her voice was calm. Too calm. Do you still talk to her? No. Did you know she'd do this? I hoped she wouldn't. But you weren't surprised. Clarissa didn't answer.
She didn't have to.
Ava stared at her for a long time, then said, You need to go. Clarissa's heart cracked. Ava, not forever. Just right now. I need space. Will you? I don't know, Ava whispered. I want to believe we're past this. But some scars don't fade when you keep reopening them. Clarissa nodded, backed away, walked out the door, again. But this time, she didn't feel like she was being punished. She felt like she was being tested. And if Ava needed space, she would give it. For as long as it took. Ava Lowell didn't cry. Not this time. She sat alone in the back office of the bookstore, the printed pages spread out in front of her, proof of a past that wouldn't die quietly. Her hands rested palm down on the desk, steady, though the storm inside her had begun again, violent and loud and ancient. Clarissa's voice echoed in her mind. I wanted you anyway, even if I never deserved you. But that voice was layered now, blended with another. A darker, crueler version. She's so soft. I could marry her in a week and have her crying by the end of the month. That version of Clarissa had existed once, had smiled through deception, touched her gently while planning her downfall. And Ava had loved her, trusted her. Ava stared at the evidence. A photograph of Clarissa with her head thrown back in laughter at some rooftop party. The audio transcribed word for word, emotion stripped to syllables. She read it all. Again. And again. Not to torture herself, but to remember. Because moving forward without facing the truth would be another kind of lie. And Ava Lowell refused to lie to herself again. Outside, the bookstore was quiet. She'd closed early. Turned the sign. Turned off the music. The only sound was the ticking of the old wall clock. You need to go, she had said to Clarissa. Not out of hatred. Not out of fear. But because if Clarissa had stayed, she might have forgiven her too fast. Again. And Ava couldn't afford to keep loving a woman who hadn't yet proven that she could stand beside her through fire without relighting it. For 2 days, Ava stayed silent. No messages. No letters. No visits. She didn't walk by the East Village apartment. Didn't ask mutual friends. She didn't have to. She knew where Clarissa was. Knew she was waiting. Quietly. Ava hated how much she missed her. But missing someone wasn't a reason to return. So she did something else instead. She packed a bag, left the bookstore in the hands of a trusted friend, and drove upstate, to the same cabin where everything had unraveled, and where, in a way, everything had begun. The air was colder now. Leaves scattered across the porch in shades of orange and rust. Ava unlocked the door and stepped inside, the scent of wood and memory flooding her senses. The same fireplace. The same floorboards. The same silence. She lit a fire, sat on the rug, let herself remember. The first kiss. The soft confession. I think I'm falling for you. The betrayal. The ruin. And then the rebuilding. Ava opened her journal. Not the one she kept at the shop. The private one. The one Clarissa had never seen. She wrote for hours. Everything. The truth of her love. The depth of her hurt. The fury. The hope. She wrote until her fingers cramped and her eyes burned. And then, only then, did she allow herself to cry. Not because of the betrayal, but because of the possibility that she might still want to love her. That was the most terrifying part. She wanted Clarissa still.
Even now.
Not the polished version. Not the CEO or the monster or the myth. But this Clarissa. The one who was rebuilding without applause. Who had walked away from her empire. Who had brought her evidence of her own crime and said, I want to do this right. On the third morning, Ava drove back into the city. She didn't call first. Didn't warn. She just walked up the stairs to the apartment Clarissa now rented above a noisy diner, the same one that smelled like grease and second chances, and knocked. No answer. She knocked again. Then the door opened. Clarissa stood there in sweatpants and a t-shirt, hair messy, eyes tired.
Real.
Ava, she breathed, voice already frayed. Are you? I'm not here to scream, Ava said. I'm not here to collapse either. Clarissa stood back. Let her in. Did you read it all? She asked. Every word. And Ava turned to face her. I hated it. And I'm still here. Clarissa swallowed. Why? Because you brought it to me.
She paused.
Because you didn't hide. Because the woman who made that bet is gone. Clarissa stepped closer, like she couldn't believe it. Are you saying? No, Ava cut in gently. I'm not saying I forgive you. Not yet. But I'm saying, I believe you now. And I want to try again. Clarissa's breath caught. Ava, slowly, Ava said. On my terms. With honesty. With care. And with the understanding that the moment I feel myself disappearing again, I will walk away. Clarissa reached for her hand, but didn't close the distance. Can I touch you? Ava hesitated, then stepped into her, wrapped her arms around Clarissa's waist. Let her rest her forehead against her shoulder. I've missed you so much it hurt, Ava whispered. Every second. Clarissa held her then. Not tightly, not possessively. Just there. Steady. Reverent. They didn't kiss. They didn't make promises. They just stood, breathing each other in. It was the beginning of something fragile.
Raw.
Unwritten. A slow rebirth. The fire hadn't gone out, but it had learned to warm instead of burn. They didn't call it a second chance. That phrase felt too clean, too packaged, like it came wrapped with a bow and a guarantee. What Clarissa and Ava had now was Messier. Slower. Something between a restart and a reckoning. They moved like people walking barefoot through broken glass, cautious, deliberate, flinching when old scars were pressed just a little too hard. Clarissa didn't stay the night. She didn't even ask to. After that quiet, soul-deep embrace in her apartment, she let Ava go. Opened the door for her. Watched her leave with hands curled into fists, aching to hold her again. But wanting her wasn't the point anymore. Respecting her was. Ava texted her the next morning. There's a poetry reading tonight at the shop. I think you'd like it. No pressure. Clarissa replied simply. If you're there, I'll like it. That night, she arrived early. Helped Ava move chairs and string up soft lights. They didn't talk about the past. They didn't talk about anything heavy at all. Just books. Music. The best flavors of tea. But Clarissa noticed the way Ava's eyes lingered on her mouth sometimes. The way her fingers brushed Clarissa's wrist when passing her something. The way she caught herself smiling, only to look away like it had been a mistake. There was still heat between them, but it had changed. It wasn't fire threatening to consume them anymore. It was the slow-burning kind, the kind that kept you warm through the hardest winter. Halfway through the reading, Ava introduced the next poet and stepped aside. Clarissa stood near the back, hands folded in front of her, watching. Ava's profile in the low light. The shape of her concentration. The softness in her shoulders when she relaxed. It hit her all over again, how much she'd almost lost. How much she still had to earn. After the crowd left, after the last cup of chai was poured and the last folding chair put away, Ava turned to her. "Walk me home." "Always," Clarissa said. They walked in silence at first, the city alive around them. Clarissa kept a respectful distance, but every part of her was tuned to Ava. The sound of her breath, the shifting of her hands, the way her hair moved in the breeze. "Do you still have it?" Ava asked suddenly. "The letter I wrote you. I read it every morning." Ava was quiet for a moment.
Why?
"Because it's not a love letter," Clarissa said. "It's a map. Of all the places I broke you. Of all the places I need to be better." Ava looked at her. "And do you think you're getting better?" Clarissa hesitated. "I think I'm finally telling the truth. Even when it's ugly. Even when it makes me smaller than I used to be." "That's not smaller," Ava said. "That's real." They reached Ava's building. She stopped at the steps. "Want to come up?" Clarissa's heart jumped. "Only if you want me to." "I'm not asking you to stay," Ava said. I'd like company. Just for a little while." Clarissa followed her up. The apartment was dim, quiet, full of Ava's softness. Plants, candles, half-read books stacked on the windowsill. Clarissa stood awkwardly by the door. Ava motioned for her to sit on the couch, then disappeared into the kitchen. She returned with 2 mugs of mint tea and sat beside her. "Not close. Not far. Just there." "You used to lie without blinking," Ava said, holding her cup. "Even your kindness felt like it had strings." "I know." "And now," Clarissa said softly, "I'm trying to love you without conditions. Even if it means watching you fall out of love with me." Ava closed her eyes. "I never fell out of love." Clarissa froze. "I tried," Ava continued. "I wanted to. I needed to. But I never did." "Then why?" "Because love wasn't enough," Ava said. "Not when it came with betrayal." Clarissa nodded, chest tight. "And now?" Ava set her cup down, turned to her. "Now I want to see if we can have love and truth. If the second time can be built with both of us holding the weight." Clarissa's voice was barely a whisper. "I'll hold whatever you let me." Ava looked at her for a long, quiet moment. Then she reached out, slowly, gently, and took Clarissa's hand. "Don't rush this." "I won't. Don't try to make up for the past with flowers and speeches. I know. Just be here. Be real. And when it's hard, don't run. I'll stay." Ava nodded. "Then I think we can try." Clarissa leaned forward, forehead resting against Ava's. They didn't kiss. They didn't need to. Their hands stayed joined, hearts tangled in the hush between words. It wasn't a second chance. It was a first attempt finally done right. They didn't fall back into each other. They walked. Slowly. Step by trembling step. Each glance, each shared silence, each accidental laugh was a fragile thread that reconnected what had once been shredded. Clarissa was careful with her hands now. She didn't reach for Ava unless invited. She didn't linger too long when they brushed fingers passing a cup or when their legs touched on the subway ride home from the library. She gave Ava the space to want her again. And Ava didn't know what scared her more, that she still wanted Clarissa, or that, maybe, she was falling even harder this time. Because this wasn't the fantasy anymore. This was the real, flawed, haunted version of the woman who'd once broken her. And Ava was seeing pieces of Clarissa no one else ever had. Like the way she flinched when someone raised their voice, even if it wasn't at her. Or the way she sometimes forgot to eat, lost in self-punishment until Ava placed food gently in front of her. Or the quiet way Clarissa would whisper, "Are you okay?" every time Ava fell silent for too long, as if she couldn't bear another goodbye. They hadn't kissed again. Not since that night in the apartment. But they were closer now than they'd ever been before. Not physically, emotionally. There was no mask left. No armor. And for Ava, that vulnerability was intoxicating and terrifying. On the night of Clarissa's birthday, a date Ava had once known but hadn't celebrated since the fallout, she showed up at Clarissa's tiny apartment holding a small box wrapped in plain paper and tied with twine. "You remembered," Clarissa whispered, stunned. "I almost didn't come," Ava admitted. "I was afraid you'd think it meant more than I'm ready to give." "It means everything," Clarissa said, stepping back to let her in. "Whatever it is. However long you stay." Ava walked inside, setting the box on the table. "It's not much. You're here. That's more than I deserve." Clarissa opened the package slowly. Inside was a pocket watch. Old, worn, beautifully simple. On the back, a small inscription. "Time doesn't undo what we did, but it gives us space to do better." Clarissa blinked fast. "You really never do anything halfway, do you?" "Neither do you," Ava said. "That's why it hurts so much." They sat across from each other at the table, 2 cups of tea between them. Clarissa traced the rim of her mug. "I haven't celebrated my birthday since I left Vail International. Didn't feel like I'd earned anything worth celebrating." "You have," Ava said. "I see it every time I look at you." "I'm still scared." "Of what?" "That I'll slip. That I'll disappoint you. That you'll realize I'll never be enough to make up for what I did." Ava reached across the table, touched Clarissa's hand. "I'm not asking you to make up for the past. I'm asking you to build something new with me. Slowly. Day by day." Clarissa looked up, eyes glassy. "Do you really believe we can?" "I don't know," Ava said. "But I want to believe. And that's a start." They sat in that softness for a long while. Then, without a word, Ava stood, walked around the table, and sat beside Clarissa. Their arms touched. Clarissa didn't move, didn't breathe. Then Ava turned her face, lips close to Clarissa's temple. "I want to kiss you," she whispered. Clarissa turned to her, breath catching. "You can." Ava cupped her face, tilted it gently, and kissed her. Not like a promise, not like a confession, but like a question. Clarissa answered it with her mouth, her hands, the quiet sound she made when Ava leaned in deeper. This kiss wasn't soft like the last. It was wanting, honest, earned. Clarissa pulled away just slightly, forehead pressed to Ava's. "Does this mean?" Ava closed her eyes. "It means I want to stop surviving you and start loving you again." Clarissa exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for months. "Then let me love you right this time." Ava nodded, slowly. "You can start by sleeping beside me tonight. Just that. Nothing else." "I'll stay as long as you want," Clarissa whispered. "Then get your coat." That night, they lay in Ava's bed, fully clothed, facing each other, hands entwined between them. Clarissa whispered stories she'd never told anyone. About her mother's absence. About growing up feeling like a mistake dressed in designer clothing. Ava listened, then opened her own wounds, the guilt she'd carried for trusting Clarissa too fast, the loneliness that had eaten her alive when Clarissa disappeared from her life. And in the space between pain and presence, they built something raw and unshaped. Something that could one day be called love again. But outside their little world, something darker stirred. Victoria Lang hadn't disappeared. And she wasn't done. She'd seen the photos of Ava and Clarissa at the poetry night. Heard the whispers about how the 2 women were close again. She watched from afar, waited, and smiled. Because while Clarissa had walked away from the empire, she hadn't walked away from the consequences. And Victoria? Victoria had always known how to wait until the moment would hurt the most. They woke before the sun. Not because of an alarm. Not because of noise. But because something inside both of them had shifted. Clarissa lay on her side, facing Ava in the soft gray pre-dawn, watching the slow rise and fall of her chest beneath the blanket. Her hand rested loosely in Ava's, and she hadn't moved it all night. They hadn't kissed again. Hadn't undressed each other. Hadn't even dared to say, "I love you." But they'd held each other. And that had been more intimate than anything else. Clarissa studied her now, the curve of her lashes, the way her lips parted slightly in sleep, the faint crease between her brows like even her dreams carried the weight of everything they hadn't said. I want to be better for you, Clarissa thought. And I don't know if I'll ever be good enough, but I swear I'll spend the rest of my life trying. Ava stirred then, eyes fluttering open. For a second, she looked confused, like she'd forgotten where she was. Then her gaze landed on Clarissa, and something in her face softened. Hey, she whispered. Hey, Clarissa said back, just as quietly. Ava's fingers curled slightly around hers. You didn't run. You asked me to stay. Ava nodded, then leaned in slowly, pressed a soft kiss to Clarissa's cheek. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't charged. It was a gesture of quiet trust. And it made Clarissa's throat tighten more than any kiss on the lips ever had. But peace never lasted long in their world. And by the time the clock struck 10, everything began to fall apart. It started with a phone call. One Clarissa didn't answer. The number was private. Then another. And another. At first, she ignored them. Ava made breakfast, Clarissa helped. They ate together at the small table, sunlight pouring in across the worn like something sacred. But then Ava's phone buzzed. A text. From a blocked contact. Check the news. Ava frowned, picking up her phone. Clarissa watched her face slowly drain of color as she tapped the screen. What is it? Clarissa asked, already standing. Ava turned the phone to her. There it was. Splashed across the entertainment sites, the gossip blogs, even a few mainstream news outlets. Former billionaire Clarissa Vale secretly dating her bet victim again? Below the headline, photos. Grainy but unmistakable. Ava and Clarissa on the sidewalk, walking close, arms almost touching. Another of Clarissa at Ava's door. And the worst, a photo from the poetry night. Ava introducing Clarissa to someone, Clarissa smiling down at her like she hung the stars. Clarissa's breath caught. No, she whispered. Ava had already opened another article. The headline read, Sources say Clarissa's redemption was all a setup again. And underneath it, a leaked email between Clarissa Vale and Victoria Lang suggests the two remained in contact throughout her so-called redemption arc. Is this a second bet? A second manipulation? Is Ava Lowell falling for the same lie twice? Ava stood, her chair scraping against the floor. Clarissa. It's not true. I know, Ava said quickly. But the world doesn't. Clarissa ran a shaking hand through her hair. The email. There is no email. Victoria must have forged it. Ava nodded. I know. But no one else will. Clarissa's mind spiraled. I stepped away from everything. I haven't spoken to her in months. But she's smart. And angry. And she knew exactly when to do this. Clarissa's jaw clenched. She waited until I was close to getting you back. Ava looked at her. So what do? I go public. I tell them the truth. Again. Clarissa, no, she said firmly. I'm not going to hide anymore. I'm not going to let her win. And what if they don't believe you? Clarissa turned to her, eyes blazing. Then let them not believe me. Let the world say what it wants. I only care about one person believing me. Ava stared at her, breathing fast. You think I do? I hope you do. Ava closed the space between them. I believe you, she whispered. But I don't know if I can survive watching you be torn apart again. I'm not the one they'll go after. Clarissa's voice cracked. You are. Ava's throat worked. I've survived worse. Not from me. Not again. Then tell me what to do. Clarissa paused. Say you'll stay with me. Even if it gets ugly. Even if the headlines get cruel again. You know I can't promise that. Then just don't walk away before we fight. Ava stepped even closer. Took Clarissa's face in her hands. I won't walk, she whispered. But if we do this, if we tell the truth, it has to come from both of us. Together. Clarissa nodded. Then let's do it. They released a joint statement that night. No PR agent. No fancy press team. Just Ava's words, typed by Clarissa's hands. Our story began with a lie. But the truth is what we're writing now. We are not perfect people. But we are trying, slowly, fully, honestly, to become something better than the past we built. Whatever comes next, We're facing it together. The backlash came instantly. Headlines, screaming voices, tweets, videos, threads. Some accused Ava of being foolish. Others painted Clarissa as a manipulator beyond redemption. But among the noise, something new began to rise. People, strangers, defending them. People grow. Clarissa didn't have to come clean. She already lost everything. But she did anyway. Let women choose love, even if it's messy. For the first time, Clarissa didn't feel like she had to fight the world. Just live in it. As herself. As someone flawed. Human. And trying. Ava held her through that night, tucked in the corner of the couch while Clarissa read every awful headline like punishment. Stop reading them, Ava whispered, pressing her lips to Clarissa's hair. They don't know you like I do. Clarissa's voice broke. I don't deserve you. Then earn me. Every day. I will. But even as she whispered it, Clarissa knew the real test was still coming. Because Victoria hadn't shown her face yet. And when she did, it wouldn't be just revenge. It would be war. Clarissa Vale had always known it would end like this, with fire. Not in the poetic way. Not passion or lust or longing. Real fire. The kind that burned reputations to ash and turned second chances into smoldering debris. She just hadn't expected to be standing beside Ava when the match was finally lit. The confrontation didn't happen in private. Victoria Lang never did anything small. She crashed the fundraiser. It was supposed to be a quiet evening. A literacy gala organized by the same nonprofit where Clarissa now worked part-time. Ava was there too, helping organize the book donations and greet guests. It was the first public event they'd attended together since the scandal. They hadn't kissed in front of anyone, hadn't held hands. But people saw it in the way Ava glanced over her shoulder to find Clarissa in the crowd. In the way Clarissa looked at Ava like the whole world had finally stopped trying to ruin her. Then the doors opened, and Victoria walked in like a queen returning to a throne that had never belonged to her. Blood-red dress. Snake-thin smile. Eyes locked on Clarissa. Time slowed. Clarissa saw her. Saw the danger. Saw the performance already coiling behind her perfect posture. Ava's hand found hers instinctively. Don't, she whispered. Not here. But it was already happening. Victoria reached the stage before security could stop her. She didn't need a microphone. Her voice carried like venom. Since we're all here to talk about words, she said, why don't we talk about the ones that were never meant to be heard? The room shifted. Clarissa moved toward the stage, Ava close behind her. Victoria smiled, triumphant. Did she tell you? She asked the crowd. That I created her? That everything she is, she learned from me. Stop, Clarissa said. You're embarrassing yourself. Am I? Victoria tilted her head. Or am I just telling the truth you're too scared to say? You loved hurting people, Clarissa. You loved breaking them down and watching them beg for crumbs. Ava was just the first one you regretted. I regret everything I did with you, Clarissa said, voice low and deadly. And I won't let you rewrite that. You can't rewrite the past, Victoria said. But you can lie about it. That's what you've been doing, isn't it? Pretending you're redeemed. Pretending she's forgiven you. I haven't, Ava said, stepping forward. Her voice didn't shake. Not fully. But that's none of your business. Victoria turned to her. Sweetheart, he'll do it again. That's what people like her do. They seduce. They destroy. Then they crawl back like martyrs. She's not crawling, Ava said. She's standing beside me. That's more than you ever did. A hush fell over the room. Victoria blinked, thrown off by the steel in Ava's voice. You think she's changed? Victoria hissed. You think this is real? I know it is, Ava said. Because the old Clarissa would have let you speak. The old Clarissa would have tried to outsmart you, outcruel you. This one. She reached for Clarissa's hand. This one just wants peace. Clarissa looked at her. The fear that had been tightening around her chest all night unraveled. Victoria scoffed. You think love makes you strong? Love makes you weak. It's the reason you lost your empire. Your name. Everything. And I'd lose it all again, Clarissa said, stepping in front of Ava, if it meant keeping her safe from people like you. You chose to be powerless, Victoria spat. No, Clarissa said. I chose to be human. Security reached the stage. The tension broke like glass. Victoria was escorted out, hurling insults behind her, but the moment had already passed. Clarissa turned to Ava, her hands still shaking. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't know she'd show up. You didn't have to, Ava said. She was always going to come back. The real test wasn't stopping her. It was choosing not to become her. Clarissa closed her eyes. Let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. I don't want to fight anymore. Then don't, Ava said. Come home with me. They left before the gala ended. Clarissa didn't ask where they were going. She just followed Ava through the streets, heart pounding with something that felt dangerously close to freedom. When they reached Ava's apartment, she expected silence. Instead, Ava shut the door behind them and turned. Her voice was quiet. Steady. Take off your coat. Clarissa obeyed, pulse racing. Ava stepped closer. I want to look at you without noise. Without headlines. Without guilt between us. Clarissa nodded, breath shallow. Okay. Ava lifted a hand, touched Clarissa's jaw. You're not the woman I married. No, Clarissa whispered. But I'm the woman who never stopped loving you. I know, Ava said. I just needed time to love her back. Then she kissed her.
Fierce. Full. Honest.
The kind of kiss that burned everything old to the ground. And Clarissa kissed her back with every piece of the self she'd rebuilt from ash. There was no rush. No performance. No fear. That night, they undressed each other slowly. Mapped each other's scars like scripture. Made love like survivors, not of war, but of themselves. And for the first time in either of their lives, there was no lie in a room. No plan. No game. Just two women, raw, ruined, and still choosing each other anyway. The world didn't explode after the gala. There was no firestorm, no lawsuits, no dramatic fall from grace. It all ended quietly. Victoria Lang vanished from the news cycle just as fast as she'd entered it, swallowed whole by her own bitterness. The emails she leaked were exposed as fakes, traced back to a private account she had accessed illegally. Clarissa didn't press charges.
She didn't need to.
The silence that followed was punishment enough. For once, the silence was kind. Clarissa and Ava fell into something real. Something steady. The headlines softened. The whispers faded. And neither of them cared about the noise anymore. They built a life the way people build trust, slowly, with trembling hands and open hearts. Clarissa never tried to buy Ava's love back. She showed up for it instead. Every day. Quiet things. Waking early to walk Ava to the bookstore. Leaving handwritten notes in the pockets of Ava's sweaters. Learning how to cook her favorite breakfast without burning it. She never called it redemption. She never called it reparation. She called it love. Ava let herself be loved again.
Gently.
Fearfully, at first. But she did. She forgave Clarissa in pieces, not in one sweeping, dramatic moment, but over cups of tea and shared stories and late-night laughter. And in time, the past stopped bleeding into the present. They didn't need to rebuild what they had. They created something new, stronger, truer. One morning in early spring, Clarissa stood outside the bookstore waiting for Ava to open up. She held a coffee in one hand and a folded piece of paper in the other. When Ava arrived, Clarissa handed her the drink, kissed her cheek, and said, "Can we close early today?" Ava blinked. "Why?" Clarissa smiled. "I have something I want to show you." They drove upstate, back to the cabin. But this time, the energy wasn't heavy. There were no ghosts. No sharp words waiting between them. Only soft music playing from the car speakers and Clarissa stealing glances at Ava, who was singing along, barefoot against the dashboard. "You've been quiet," Ava said when they pulled up to the house. "You okay?"
Yeah.
Clarissa stepped out, opened Ava's door. "Just thinking." "About?" Clarissa didn't answer. She led Ava into the cabin, where everything had been cleaned, repainted, made new. Ava looked around, stunned. "Did you?" "I bought it," Clarissa said. Not for me. For us. Ava's eyes widened. Clarissa. This isn't a proposal, Clarissa interrupted gently. Not yet. I just wanted to show you something. She took out the folded paper and handed it to Ava. It was a letter. Dear Ava, I used to think power was about control, about having the upper hand, always. But the most powerful I've ever felt was when I knelt beside you in the dark and asked you to see me. Not the CEO. Not the billionaire. Just me. And you did. Even when I didn't deserve it. You loved me with your eyes open. And every day, you give me the chance to try again. So, this isn't a proposal. It's a promise. I will love you without lies. I will protect you without pride. I will build with you without fear. And when you're ready, if you ever are, I'll be waiting at the cabin with your favorite book and a ring in my pocket.
No deadline.
No pressure. Just love. Ava's hands trembled slightly as she read. When she looked up, Clarissa was watching her with that same expression she'd had the very first day they met, confident, cautious, full of desire and restraint. Ava didn't speak. She walked to Clarissa, pulled her close, kissed her like an answer. When they broke apart, Ava whispered, "You'll be waiting with a ring?" Clarissa nodded. "In my pocket." Ava leaned her forehead against hers. "Then you should probably take it out." Clarissa blinked. "What?" "I'm saying yes." Clarissa pulled back slightly. "To what?" "To everything." Ava smiled. "To the ring. To the cabin. To the bookstore mornings and burnt breakfasts and Tuesday night reading circles. To you." Clarissa's breath hitched. "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure." Clarissa reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the box.
Small.
Velvet.
Trembling.
She opened it, hands shaking. "Ava Lowell, will you marry me?" Ava laughed through tears. "Again. For real this time." "Then yes. Yes, Clarissa. I'll marry you." They kissed. In the middle of the room where everything had once fallen apart, they kissed like the ending of a story that finally got it right. Not perfect. Not polished. But honest. And when they held each other, Ava whispered, "It wasn't the fire that ruined us." "No," Clarissa murmured. "It was the lie." And now we only tell the truth. And they did. From that day forward. With every touch, every word, every promise. It wasn't just a love story anymore. It was a life. And they chose it. Together. Every damn day. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you.